Greetings to everyone. My name is Wong Jaen, and today I'll be presenting my business ethics assignment titled Fast Fashion, Fast Consequence, an ethical analysis of Shein covering labor practice, product safety, environmental impact, and regulatory compliance. So here's what I'll be covering today. First, a brief overview of Shein as a company. Second, four key ethical issues the company is currently facing: labor, illegal products, environment, and compliance. Third, I'll be using PESTEL framework to show how these issues affect the business as a whole. Fourth, I'll share some practical recommendations for Shein. And lastly, I'll end with a short conclusion on why ethics cannot be afterthought for a company like this. So, who exactly is Shein? It was founded in 20 2008 in Nanjing, China by Chris Shi, rebranded as Shein in 2015, and its headquarters now in Singapore. Today is the world's largest online-only ultra-fast fashion retailer, generating about $38 billion in revenue in 2024, employing more than 16,000 people worldwide and serving over 150 countries. What really sets it apart is its speed. It's designed to sell lead time is only 10 days. It's also worth mentioning that Shein planned IPO on the London Stock Exchange has been delayed for few times already, mainly because of the growing ethical and regulatory scrutiny, and this really is the heart of what we'll be discussing today. Now, to understand why these ethical issues keep surfacing, we need to understand how business model actually works. First, Shein uses an AI-driven demand forecasting system internally known as the LAM system, which tests small batches of around 100 units against real-time customer engagement before deciding whether to scale up production. Second, this allows them to launch thousands of new styles every single day. Third, all of these supported by a huge network of hundreds of small factories historically concentrated in Guangzhou Panyu district, sometimes nicknamed Shane Village. And fourth is driven heavily by social media influencer Hall videos, gamified reward-based features in the app that encourages people, especially Gen Z, to buying frequently. So basically, speed and low cost are the whole business model, and as we see next, that is exactly where ethical problems start to come from. So with that background in mind, let's move on to look at four key ethical issues: labor exploitation, illegal products and additive app design, environmental harm, regulatory non-compliance. Okay, let's start with labor. Investing by the BBC and Channel 4 found out some workers were earning little as 0.03 pounds or about 3 cents per garment and documented work weeks of up to 75 hours, far beyond China's legal 40-hour limit. Even Shein's own 2023 sustainability report disclosed two confirmed cases of child labor among its suppliers. In January 2025, Shein's legal counsel appeared before the UK Parliament and could not confirm that its suppliers do not source Xinjiang cotton, which raises serious forced labor concern. And in 2025, the Texas Attorney General opened a formal investigation into both labor practice and unsafe products. So this is not just an off case. It's a pattern that has been flagged by journalists, by Shein's own reporting, and now government regulators as well. So the second issue is about what is actually being sold in the platform and how the app is designed to keep people hooked on buying. In France, in 2025, light sex dolls and banned weapons were found listed on for sale in Shein marketplace. The French watchdog DGCCRF referred Shein to prosecutors, and this is offense that carry up to 7 years imprisonment under French law. Then, in February 2026, the EU Commission opened a formal investigation under Digital Services Act. This probe covers three areas: Shein's control over illegal products, its use of addictive gamified rewards features, and transparency of its recommendations algorithms. If breaches are confirmed, Shein could face up to 6% of its global annual turnover, which is really massive figure, considering its revenue is already around US 38 billion. Moving to the third issue, which is environmental impact. Shein emitted 16.7 million metric tons of CO2 in 2023 alone. That's roughly equivalent to the output of 4 coal power plants. Transport emissions reached about 8.52 million tons in 2024, up to 13% just in 1 year, largely because of the heavy reliance on the air freight to meet that 10 days lead time. Its Scope 3 emission, meaning emission across its entire value chain, grew by over 170% in just 2 years, placing it among the worst major and fast fashion emitters. In terms materials, 76% of its fabric are polyester and only 6% that is recycled, which contributes to microplastic pollution. On top of that, independently testing by Greenpeace, Germany found hazardous chemicals in Shein products, including phthalates and PFAS. Fourth, regulatory compliance. Shein was fined 3 separate times in France during 2025 alone, total into 191 billion. These penalties covered cookie law breaches, false advertising, misleading claims, and declared microplastics. On the Know the Chain benchmark, Shein disclosure on forced labor lags far behind industry leaders, and what quite telling her is the pattern concurrency regulatory action happening across the UK, France, the EU, and the US at the same time, which really signals that this isn't just bad luck in one market, but systematic transparency gap across the whole business. So, what does all this add up to? I've used the PASTEL framework to map out the effects across the business. Politically, Shein on how strained relations with the UK, French, EU, and the US regulators and its planned IPO has become politicized. Economically, is facing 191 million fines, a possible EU fine out of 6% turnover, delayed IPO, and rising compliance costs. Socially, its brand image among ethically conscious Gen Z consumers has taken a hit, and we'll see an actual consumer backlash. For example, protests outside BHV stores in Paris. Technologically, its recommendations algorithm are gamified features are how direct EU security put pressure on Shein to add proper content and moderation technology. Environmentally rising Scope 3 emissions are undermining its net zero claims and adding ESG risks right before a planned IPO. Legally, Shein faced concurrent exposure in France, the EU, and the US, including the risk of criminal referral and multi-billion dollar fines. So in short, not confined to one department, it touched almost every part of the business at the same time. So the recommendations. So how can Shane actually address all this? I would suggest 5 practical steps. 1. Independent supply chain audits, meaning and announce third-party audits with full supplier disclosure instead of relying purely on self-reporting. 2. Stronger AI content moderation to vet marketplacing listing and block block illegal or harmful products before they go to even onto live. 3. Redesigning the app engagement features to reduce the additive gamification and publishing how the recommendation algorithm actually works. 4. Setting science-based emission targets, using more circular materials, cutting back the air freight, and introducing proper skills programs. And 5. Proactively engaging with regulators, including independent ethical and ESG alliance, reviewing before IPO, rather than waiting to be invested first. So, conclude, Shane's labor, product safety, environmental and compliance issues are not associated incidents. They are direct outcomes of its ultra-fast, ultra-low cost production models. The speed, the low prices, and ethical problems are really two sides of same coin. These issues carry real political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal consequences, from hundreds of millions euros in fine to a stalled IPO. Ultimately, long-term success will be required Shane to embed the ethics into core operating model and not just treat it as public relations exercise. Thank you very much for listening. That's all from me today.